Afternoon. This is a meeting of the Town of Mount Holly Board of Abatement. We're meeting in the town office of the Town of Mount Holly on Tuesday, May 13th. It is 5:00 p.m. I'm Mark Miller, Chairman of the Board of Civil Authority. Other members present are
Diana Garrow,
Bob Burke, David Johnson,
Melissa Johnson,
Mary Sherfin,
Ann Hanson, Linda Miller,
Carol Garrow-Woolley,
Elizabeth Carl.
and the applicants are Harrison Pierce and Deborah Losi, who are also present.
I'm going to pass around this for the Board of Civil Authority, if you can sign, Mark, and then I'm going to pass this
And then-
down for you guys to sign. It's your oath.
And we are doing this already for the record, the applicant,
so look at you, it's
Deborah.
like you guys, so I guess this is.
Yeah,
Yes.
Devin Tripp, what you're gonna sign what I'm about to say, under the pains and penalties of perjury. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
that, everything is being recorded for the
Yes.
oath, so we need to, okay. We're meeting here today, for an abatement request by Harrison Pierce and Deborah Losi as follows regarding their residence at 2721 Vermont Route 155, Mount Holly, Vermont 05758, parcel ID 10E1094.00. The request is as follows. On January 23rd, 2025, while we were away, our pipes burst, rendering our house flooded and totally uninhabitable. We are requesting an abatement for this period through June 30th of this tax year. The damage sustained is extensive and repairs will not be completed by June 30th. At this point, we do not have a time frame for when we will be able to move back in, but are certain that it will not be within the next 4 or 5 months. We will be contacting the listers to assess the property in its current state. Your consideration in this matter would be greatly appreciated. We can be reached at 802-345-0091. Our mailing address is 3621 Vermont Route 103 South, Mount Holly. Please let us know your decision in this regard. Sincerely, Harrison Tripp Pierce and Deborah Losi. Before we discuss this, are there any board members who have a conflict of interest in this matter? Okay. And Devin Tripp, you have received a copy of the board's rules and procedures. And do you have any questions about this, how this hearing will proceed?
No questions.
Okay. The statutory rules for where abatements may, have you seen the rules for abatement? Do you know?
No.
Okay. The board may abate in whole or part taxes, interest, or collection fees other than those arising out of corrected classification of homestead or non-residential property accruing to the town in the following cases. You need to pick one. Taxes of persons who have died insolvent. 2, taxes of persons who have removed from the state. 3, taxes of persons who are unable to pay their taxes, interest, and collection fees. 4, taxes in which there is manifest error or a mistake of the listers. 5, taxes upon real or personal property lost or destroyed during the tax year. 6, the exemption amount available under 32 VSA 380211 to persons otherwise eligible for exemption who file a claim on or after May 1st but before October 1st due to the claimant's sickness or disability or other good causes determined by the Board of Abatement, but that exemption amount shall be reduced by 20% of the total exemption for each month or portion of the month the claim is late filed.
Five is what sounded most applicable.
Yeah, okay. So they are requesting an abatement based on property loss or damage destroyed during the 2024 tax year from January 23rd to June 30th. Do you have anything, okay, so they presented pictures of the before and after. We presume those pictures are after you already started renovation, not when you walked in and found it damaged.
The tear down of all the sheetrock and the insulation had gone on prior to these pictures being taken. Because of the wetness and the mold and all that, but that happened within that week after we came back. We heard on the 23rd and we were back here 24 hours later on the 24th and had crew and us and just ripping out everything that was wet. You know, we've had a fair amount of experience with this.
So I'm just gonna paraphrase for a few people.
Yeah.
I think it's obvious, but I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. But a few people noted the pictures. Is there a reason that there are no pictures of the damage as you walked into the house?
I didn't take any, and we had Debbie's son Ray went in prior to our arrival back to pull down the sheetrock because water was sitting in the ceiling and the downstairs and the upstairs. So he just went right at it and at least tore it down. So we didn't have any pictures to speak of prior to that that were taken in any way that I'm aware of, you know.
Anybody have any questions? I mean, it's a fairly straightforward claim. Are there any questions for Deborah Triff?
You did have insurance on the,
But we have insurance. Yep, that's a full-time job now for me.
I can only imagine.
Anyhow, that's a process that's ongoing, but it's nothing that, you know, I did this with Harry's before too, and so we're contesting all the appraisals and all their cost estimates for the jobs. Their cabinet estimate was $13,000 less than the exact item we installed after our house burned down and we rebuilt it in 2012. So they still have the original invoice at Rotellis, so, but that gives you an idea of the ground that we're sawing back and forth on
So
that.
you've been
But
hit by fire and flood, now you need wind.
yeah, we've had the plagues vigilant on us. There's 7 of them, right? And I think we've seen a few of them. I don't know, but anyhow.
And this all
may.
happened when?
This happened in January.
23rd.
January 23rd.
23rd was our notice of the fact that our house had 4 inches of standing water upstairs and downstairs, and so we were quick to get up here.
Where have you been staying? Where have you been staying?
We were in Florida.
Yes.
We were hoping to
Oh, no, now.
spend. Now we have a house rented through the insurance in Rutland, but we have woodchucks and lettuce in the garden. So we've been using the 1 bedroom that's the least damaged to sleep in, and the travel trailer is there now, but we still have an operating bathroom upstairs with a shower, which is just popped out of it. But I mean, so we're using the bathroom to the point where the guys are in there. So we run upstairs and use the john, and we've been sleeping up there up until they are done with the middle floor and all that stuff. So
Anybody else?
That's not germane to this abatement, I was just curious.
yeah, no, so it's like going to a motel, except that everything you own is in the same room. Because we had to collapse all the kitchen and everything, so it was a kitchen, living room, dining room, and everything had to come upstairs to 2 bedrooms that don't need repainting. So we're tripping over things. I had a nice file to bring which mirrored what info you have here. I don't know where it is. I've been looking for it. So everything's somewhere, and it's all there. But
furniture and everything,
Huh?
right? Furniture and everything.
yeah, we lost all the cabinets, and we had granite countertops. We were thrilled with the house when we rebuilt it after the fire, and we have Charlie Conroy who's doing the work with Kieran, or Kieran's doing the work with Charlie. However,
As long as the work is getting done.
it's proceeding at a pace. We don't anticipate anything being ready before November. In terms of, I don't know if we revisit this because of tax year stuff or
Well, to that end, you've asked, I guess, Mary and David, are you going back to reassess the property?
We've been there.
You've already been there, okay. So that'll come in as part of our deliberations. I know this seems like it was a lot, but if nobody has any questions, I'm gonna call an end to the hearing. Okay, Board of Abatement is adjourned at 5:10, and we will go into deliberative session and inform you within 30 days of our
Good
decision.
enough, that's fine.
Thank you.
Fine.
It'll probably be faster.
We did go through this process when our house burned down as well.
Was there anything else you wanted to add to this time?
Damn it. No. No, so I hate getting good at this, you know? And, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
The
guys.
good news is you're not still trying to operate a business well, let's go.
No, and the good news was the business isn't flooded this time, so,
Yeah.
so we're good, but,
At least you have a kitchen.
just as an aside, as friends and neighbors, I'm lowered the price for Harry's to $299,000.
Yeah,
And it has a 4.5 acre lot beside it, which hasn't been perked, and it's a restaurant in 1 acre. And I think it's
KB and
cheaper
I-
than most houses in
KB and I
the
talked
town.
about it last
I live in it in a minute. We may end up there. Who knows? Just put in a shower where the second pot sink is.
At least you
and
have-
there you go.
at least you have a place to cook.
Well, pass that around to any wannabes or
Yes.
aspiring chefs or mom and pops or whatever. I appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Planning Commission update with John McCann. I'm glad to see he's here.
Yeah. Okay.
And then down on citizens' comments, it's not Rimrock Road trash concern, it's Summit Road trash concerns.
Anything else? Okay, I'll make a motion.
Excuse me, I think I was requested to make a change from the conversation.
They said we're on mute on.
Okay, working on that. Should be good.
How is it now?
Good, now I can hear.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'll make a motion for the changes and additions to the agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
The ayes? Aye.
Aye.
Is the Conservation Commission still in here?
Oh, it's still kind of listed, but you can speak if you'd like.
No, well, I thought I was asked to, actually, in the previous minutes, yes.
I don't remember, but anyways, however,
Do you want to speak?
you can,
fine with
If you want to speak, you
Well,
can.
well-
If you don't want to.
I sent you a letter.
yes, I got it, the ash borer.
If you had no issues with that letter, it's requesting two things, I believe.
I just printed off one, because I just got it today.
If that's fine, I'll not say anything.
Oh.
As long as you agree with it.
We'll throw you in at the bottom because
Okay.
it's there and there's a planning commission one there too, so we'll cover them.
All right.
Okay, approval of April 8th, 21st, and 29th minutes.
I make the motion that we approve the April 8th, the April 21st, and the April 29 minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
The ayes? Aye. Okay, moving on to reports, highway and transfer station update. Clinton?
Now that it stopped raining, we're back grading again. We're putting in some culverts. Still cleaning up brush here and there. There's still a few more dead trees that need to come down. So I'm thinking of getting that man lift again and doing them ourselves. We can get it for the week and it's cheaper. Working on cleaning up the dump bodies, painting them, getting the winter rust off of them, and just plucking away.
Transfer station?
I I haven't had much time up there the last few weeks, but as far as I know, everything's still going good up there. I'm hoping things will start slowing down maybe, and we can get that shed moved around and get the new one in there. So
Okay.
I'll get a hold of the electrician to kill the power to
Yep.
move it around and whatnot. But
Any questions for Clinton on the highway?
we've been, and the grants and aids. I've been working on that for this fiscal year 2025. Well, I put in for Lake Nineveh because there's a bunch of segments. There's like 15 segments on Lake Nineveh that can get upgraded, and I think this year's was 19,000 something. So that'll help get that back up to where it should be.
Okay.
You'll do that with town horses.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
In summer probably
yeah,
sometime.
yep. That's all I got.
Thank you, Clinton. Town treasurer update, Liz?
April, as usual for this month of the fiscal year, is fairly quiet. Like Clinton said, there's some, cleanup costs that we had. For the storm, continue to pay the monthly amount for school, for education. There's little activity in cash other than money going out the door. We did get continue to have a nice deduction in receivables for our delinquent property taxes, which is good. They're continuing to be paid in their delinquency. But again, pretty quiet month overall.
The winter or the storm repair. But why not want that again?
We may not have even, honestly, I don't think we've gotten, like, for the rental bills and stuff, we haven't received those yet. There'll probably be more hitting in May, but it's really just labor time and some small supplies or outside services. I know we did have some additional help with some labor.
Yep.
In the scheme of things, it's really minor, just there's not much else. Of note.
Okay.
I think I'll just put it while you're still looking, the other two items that are on the agenda. Our auditors have shifted to really front-loading all of their requests, including their requests for payment. So you'll see there's a prepaid amount on the balance sheet, which is to our audit firm, and that was to hold our agreed upon engagement. So we have done that to continue, so they will do our 24-25 audit. And they've sent us a new fixed asset agreement. They increased the price from $250 a year to $750 a year.
So we've already signed this form.
The form wasn't signed, but it looks like the bill got processed. I had sent the email along, so I think, and we had already agreed to continue with their services as part of an engagement. It's just they weren't.
But we still need to.
We still need to sign that one and return it, yeah.
Good.
But that just, with audit, it's year end, so just as we get closer to year end, just keeping an eye on where we land as expenses come up for discussion. And the next, it's only a month and a half left.
Okay, so we already reappointed R.H.R. Smith for auditor for next year. All right, and just fill out paperwork and that's it. Okay.
Any questions for Liz? Thank you, Liz. Okay, moving on to Lister's report. David?
So the agenda says file the certificate of no appeal. That was done 3 months ago. So, but in a general update, all our site inspections are done. Today we finished the new valuations. You have to reconcile between the grand list and current use in the state system yet. So, and we've been looking ahead. Scheduling is a big problem, and the deadlines that you need so many days notice for things. So it looks like the grievances will be on Friday, June 20th. But that's not final, but that looks like when it'll be, so.
Any questions for David? Thanks, David. Moving on to the MPG Health Study update. Jeff?
We've working on that grant. I didn't print it out, but I'll give a synopsis. John, correct me if I'm missing anything. We've got the consultant working on the plan. They've got a draft. There's basically 3 parts to the plan. First part is existing conditions, which they've completed. And, well, not completed, but they've got a full draft on for that, and they're working on the next section, which is, there's 2 more sections. I wrote it down, but I don't have it in front of me. And then we've formed a working committee, just of some people, about 8 people in the community. Had a first meeting at the end of April, and just brainstorm ideas about, I think our biggest takeaway was contacting some employers in town and just getting their feedback. So we put together a list of employers, and different committee members are going to go out and talk to them and they're going to be a liaison between us and the consultant. So that's where we're at. We're about 25% complete. We did the reimbursement, requested the first reimbursement, which I think was like 30% or 33%. And that was received. So we're on track. It's supposed to be done by September, and we're still on track, but it'll be a busy summer on it.
Any questions on the MPG? Thanks, Jeff. Moving on, Conservation Commission update, Phil?
Well, you saw my note. I'm asking for permission to order these things when and if I need them. And I think I pointed out what the fiscal impact of this would be, which won't be more than $100, if that much.
I think you had that in your budget.
I I don't,
No, I thought we used one.
Thank you.
the problem is that I don't know when I need it, and if there's a delay of 2 weeks after I knew it before I can order it, that interrupts the process in a time when we really need to be doing it, not waiting for stuff to come.
You know, I think my question would be, so for 25, 26, do you have other planned expenses? Because you mentioned like a net $100 cost here, which is certainly well within any budget. I just don't know.
Well, for the next fiscal year, you're asking.
Correct, because the budget for the commission is,
Well, I think we have several items, but we are currently waiting on some grants. So, of course, we're not gonna spend money we don't have. So, but I don't anticipate any major undertaking. I mean, we'll probably do the bottom barriers again, which I think is rolled into what we've already have. And we have, I would like to take the opportunity to advertise our meeting on the 29th of this month to, with the community members, I think the Conservation Trust and the Community Association to put together a management plan for the Star Lake. And there are, I mean, we could go into it, but there are 3 aspects to it. There's the recreation area.
well, hold on, just to stick with this for a moment. I just want, right now, the annual budget for the Conservation Commission is $1,000. And we had waited to purchase more last fall, or it was really reimbursed, but,
It wasn't actually. You may remember.
no, I would have to look back at the details.
Yeah.
But it was exceeded back, the budget for the year was exceeded back then. And this will order sooner so that you have it, which I agree makes sense. I'm just then wondering about the next year's other expenses, because it will go into next year's budgeted amount.
I don't have any idea that we'll have any expenses that exceed within 10 or 15% what we've done this year, or one way or the other.
Yeah, it's a very small budget item, so
Yeah, yeah.
when I'm looking at that line
Yeah,
item,
Well,
that's tight, but
no, but yeah,
I agree with the seasonality.
yeah.
But the material cost gets reimbursed
Yes.
from the people that are doing.
And that receives the material.
Correct.
And the injectors have a finite lifetime. So so we need to update them, as it were.
And then there's a line item in the budget for shade tree
Yeah,
preservation,
yeah,
which doesn't look like anything's been used yet,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right below conservation.
We did some other tree work that we had into, like,
Well, the ash,
we talked about,
the ash trees below that, yeah, that's over budget by 900, yeah.
and that's where we had kind of, I think, already discussed that shade tree line item in that respect, but it's still, and that's why I'm bringing up the next year's budgeted amount. That's what we're really looking at spending.
Is the income that he receives for reimbursement, where does that line land?
That is an income,
Is an income item, right?
yeah. And that I would expect, it would probably be for the next fiscal year as well, so that's where I'm just looking at it from that perspective. I think it will offset, it's just timing.
I think we had quite a lot of income last year from that actual, it was, I think it covered the cost of what we spent.
Yeah, I think it generally is just the timing of it, because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
goes over it's right at the crux
Yeah, I
of
know.
the fiscal year.
That's when we need to do it.
Yeah,
Is that 1260 that's already taken out of there from, because we missed the timing of last year probably?
I think that was the bottom barriers primarily, just the timing.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of it's timing. On the second, it's actually right on the front page of the income statement under other reserve fund revenues. Jeff, if you're looking for it, it's about 3/4 of the way down. There was $2,052 in income this year. 1,652 of it was for the ash tree program.
Well, beside advertising our meeting on the 29th, I think we're finished. I think, I hope that that there will be a good turnout for them. I think we finally have some clear idea how to proceed. Well, it's within 1 week.
It's about, the ask is 1,000, I think. It's 900 plus 100. With the hopes of it get reimbursed. Right, it's 1,000 total that you're looking to spend.
Something like that.
Round
I think
numbers,
it's more being able to,
It's being able
regardless of the
to,
timing.
yeah.
it's the timing, correct.
And that wipes out the whole new year's budget.
Until the money comes back in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the challenge last year was getting it had to go before the board each time there was a new order and there wasn't a precedent to, basically to overspend on the budget, knowing that the reimbursement was coming. So this would be approval to do that, knowing we've seen it in action, the money comes back.
So do we need to make a motion on this?
I'm okay with it if the rest of the board is okay with it, as long as we know the money's coming back. And because that is their whole budget for the year.
I guess I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'd rather
Okay.
just do it and that way
Okay.
Okay.
trees them die.
Thanks, Phil. Moving on to planning commission update, John.
Yeah, I didn't bring anything prepared, but just two things off the top of my head. We have Robert Garrow's subdivision has made its way through Act 250 and it's back to us. We're looking at that now. I think he's got a new plat he's revising to bring to our next meeting, and it should go forward. Probably to a hearing the following month. I guess the other thing that's noteworthy is Cavendish has, I guess now, has a near final draft for the subdivision regulation. Cavendish being sort of similar to Mount Holly in some ways, a little bit different in some ways, but something we'll be looking at carefully because it's got some nice language in it. Their regional planning commission, I think, wrote it for them or advised them on the creation of it. And we've been in touch with ours to see if we can get some help with this as well, to just revise ours. Ours are pretty old at this point, 1998 as I recall, and basically give every applicant a real hard time, so something we'll be looking at in the next couple of months. Nice to be able to copy other people's examples when possible.
Leverage.
I agree.
That's it.
Any questions for John? Thank you, John. Okay, moving on to new business. V-Trans Road Erosion Inventory Grant. Approve grant and assign authorization grant.
There's grant signer. This is for there's a grant out there for inventorying all of our roadside swales and culverts, which is a requirement of stormwater permitting. So it's a grant with a match of $3,500 from us. It could be in kind or dollars and re-elected. I'm thinking just do in kind, which would be Clinton's time to help RRPC to do the inventorying on the iPad GIS. So just put this on there to apply for the grant, and then if you guys are okay appointing me as the authorized grant signer and representative.
I make the motion that we appoint Jeff as grant signer and representative.
I'll second it. Yeah.
And with that, I'll contract with we'll sign the contract with RRPC to do the services.
Thank you, Jeff.
You know, go with us doing it, it's gonna go a lot quicker because of us knowing the roads and they don't, so it'll be a plus.
You gonna have fun with the iPad?
I'm getting used to that thing finally.
Oh, good. I was gonna say it's probably good
5
practice
years.
too.
Let's hope it still doesn't need to be updated.
Oh.
Those things don't last much longer than 4 years.
Oh.
Knock on wood, it's still
I've got a
working.
10-year-old.
All right, review RFP for Chaburn Lane.
I did not have an opportunity to prepare this, but I will for next meeting. And this is for storm repair work on the bridge abutment, just rebuilding a stone abutment. So that'll be forthcoming.
Okay, that will be next week. Okay, review RFP for paving.
I just wanted to discuss getting ahead on the paving. It was ideally going to bring the RFP with me, but it's the boilerplate template that we use every year. It's really just a question of when we're going to put the bid out and to the extent, but based on what you were saying when you came in with the paving grant, there might be.
We've got the notification from the state, or the district, they have approved the paving grant, so now they send their request to the state to finalize it, but it sounds like that we got approved for a paving grant this year.
So that's a $200K grant, and we had put on the section of Hortonville from Shunpike, maybe not to Shunpike, but from under the power lines all the way out to the town line.
Yeah.
And that's been reclaimed already, so it could be 4 inches of asphalt, regrading and 4 inches of asphalt.
Very good.
So I can put the RFP out. I don't think we need to wait for the grant's response. The language in the RFP just says subject to change, but at least get the pricing before the season gets too far underway. All people are still hungry for work, and I can make that due before the next meeting.
Yeah.
And I'll just fine tune the scope of it with you.
Yeah, I'll get a hold of you.
But we're looking at like a $300,000 paving project.
No, that's good.
Exciting grant.
It is. Okay, moving on. Discuss establishing master service agreement for contractors.
Another one that I put on there, this was more something we've talked about in the past, just getting rates from the usual outside contractors and just having an agreement in place for just clarity and transparency. So I'm thinking just probably put a form out and just ask for rates. And while there may be other equipment that I often find that we do these agreements at my own work, and there's equipment that isn't necessarily listed, but at least get the base equipment, excavators, trucks, and then if there's other equipment, that rate can be decided on depending on the work that we're handing out. But this would just put it out there, and we'd have a select list of contractors that we can pick, because just even with trucking, somebody might not be available and there's other people available, but at least we have it on record.
Yep.
So I can fine tune that too in the next month.
I think that's good because we can put it out to You know, because there's other people that have reached out with interest in working with the town when crises or needs arise. Yeah.
We do have a letter on the desk in there from a person who's interested in.
Okay.
If we get them, if they do the submission, I would ask, have them
COI.
certificate of insurance
Yep.
and W-9 if they wanna
Yep.
really be in the system,
Pay
right?
them if they make over
Right.
$500. So.
No, perfect. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on to select board clerk job application. So as everybody knows, William accepted another job elsewhere. So that was short-lived. We do have a letter of interest and a resume all the way down through in I'd like to say, or let everybody know, Faith Tempest has requested for the position, and I believe Faith is the only one.
Yeah, I think we
So
posted it on the chit chat,
So-
the news flash. It's
With-
been posted. Just want that in
with
the record.
that, I'd like to make a motion to offer Faith the position.
I second.
That was fast. The ayes? Aye.
That was quick.
So we'll get an offer letter out to Faith and we'll move forward. Okay?
You'd like me to write my offer letter?
We'll get one to you, so I wanna say thank you for your interest, Faith, and welcome.
She did accept, right? I wasn't sure.
She put the letter in, too late.
Too late. Too late. Gotcha.
So,
Well, welcome.
yes, welcome and thank you for filling in tonight on your permanent position.
She's practicing today.
Okay, moving on, Delta Dental renewal is an increase of 5.06%. June 6th is the deadline. So,
And those are the increases.
for a total of 5.06.
You need to make a motion on that one.
Yes, we do. So I need a motion to accept Delta Dental renewal at an increase of 5.06%.
I'll make the motion, we approve the renewal of Delta Dental with the increase of 5.06, going forward.
Is there a second? I'll second it. The ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, hiring Rutland Sheriff Department for traffic enforcement. Just to hit that subject up, we've gotten multiple letters from different roads. Again, this one is from Paul Frazier on Hillville Road. Excessive speeds on Hillville Road. I think when they did the record, the highest speed was in the 70s coming on Hillville Road. I can attest from having a place on Hillville Road and being there a lot, that there is a elite group of vehicles that excessively speed on an everyday occasion. And it's not just Hillville Road. It's all over the place.
Here's another one for a change in speed limit on
Yeah.
155.
Yep, Mark Knoll, sent out a letter, requesting a speed change, for 155. It says, "Dear members of the select board, I hope this quick email finds you all well. It's been our observation here at 3192 VT 155, just west of Patch Hill. The cars and trucks are routinely ignoring the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit on Route 155 west into East Wallingford. At our location, the speed combined with the double curves making things particularly dangerous. With the select board's permission, I'd be happy to spearhead drafting of a letter on behalf of the select board to the Vermont Traffic Committee, to ask them to conduct a review for the speeds, inference of speed, setting a speed of 35 miles an hour between Greendale Road and Barlow Road on 155. This area is certainly as populated as the section on 103 in Cuttingsville that has a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. Also, given the hill and the limited sight line, a substantial lowering of the speed limit is warranted in the interest of public safety." So I have reviewed the process for submission of such a request, and it appears that all we have to do is, as a town, send a letter to the traffic committee coordinator. So their website says. So then it just goes through all the, how does the town go about making the change on a state highway? And again, that is through the traffic committee. So I am not opposed to this. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
I wouldn't go to 35, I would say probably 40 would be the better choice.
Well, the state will make their own.
The state's gonna do their decision. We just have to request a change in the speed. So they'll come down and they'll do a survey and then they'll make the appropriate changes. They'll put this,
Is there any cost to the town to proceed?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
no, it's a state aid, state funded highway or
And
road.
he would take care of all the paperwork for
Yep.
It's the same process Shrewsbury used to
Yeah.
lower there.
Just asking for the record.
Yep.
I don't think there was
No
any
cost to the town.
You have a lot of kids in that area too.
There's a lot of kids in that area and there's people that do walk along that area. So I've seen folks walking there as well as Healdville.
If I may,
Yes.
at Cuttingsville, hey, Devin Erie, Rutland Regional Planning, good to see you all. That Cuttingsville project took a couple of iterations, and I can tell you one thing that really helped it get over the finish line was local testimony at the traffic committee. So if there are owners on 155 that are interested in participating, it could be really beneficial to have their personal.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
No, we can,
They'll coordinate
Maybe
the time.
we can ask him if he's willing to.
if he's willing to spearhead it all. Yeah.
Little
No,
communication amongst everybody.
and I think we can send Mark a letter saying, the board's in agreement. If he wants to spearhead the letter and spearhead a group of people that want to represent that area.
Maybe the town moderator wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had actually suggested this a couple years ago, because not only is it the S turn, but again, we do have a lot of kids in that.
There is.
Definitely on the side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's an advisory yellow sign at 40.
There is.
Right.
Unfortunately, my understanding, I might be wrong on this, but I think for tickets to be issued, you have to violate a posted speed limit, and I suspect that those little signs are just an advisory.
It's an advisory, yeah.
But there's at least an acknowledgement that they should surround by the state.
I won't speak for the rest of the board, but I'm okay with Mark to spearhead the letter and spearhead it.
Right,
So,
give that to Faith so she can follow up. It was on the. The town email.
welcome, Faith.
That felt nice.
So,
Yeah, it's like, thank you,
So-
Faith.
yeah, and, we'll get a letter out to Mark and say we're okay with him spearheading it, and if he could put a group of people to go to.
Maybe even a separate letter that goes along with our
Right.
letter could be.
Yeah, absolutely, another letter or a bunch of signatures of folks that live within that section saying, hey, we agree to this letter, these are our safety concerns, and move forward with it. So, I'm okay with that.
Okay, now, the question is, are we hiring the sheriff department for traffic enforcement again this year?
It seems to be a common theme that they don't come in the hours that are needed, which is they only work business hours.
I know when we did the budget planning meeting, the topic of discussion was their effectiveness, and then we looked at considering speed
signs.
Yeah, the pricing speed signs of
Right.
actually the flashing and show your speed.
Right. We had talked about purchasing a couple of them to put them in strategic locations.
Yeah.
So I think we said we were like maybe having the sheriff's budget and then using the other half.
Correct.
I don't know if that was the
I
conversation.
think it was even less than half, but it was, we talked about allocating a big portion of that budget to signs and to make those might be more effective because the sheriff hasn't seemed to really be all that effective with the hours that are available.
Yeah, and last year they had very limited
There's no,
tickets, so
there's no revenue generated by having.
there's nothing.
No, the
John?
offset is almost different.
I'm just curious if those speed signs can like record data so that you can look back and see like what hours the speeding is, so that maybe you can target the sheriff's whatever.
Right, there might
Maybe.
be data logging, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
That
different,
would tell you a lot, probably is average speed, what hours it is. It's kind of like your own traffic study, you just have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
the more sophisticated you make them, the higher the cost goes, so we might not be able,
We can also reach out to different sheriff's
they
departments
have them.
Oh, like Windsor.
to, do speed enforcement. It doesn't have to be a Rutland County to do it.
We're on the board.
Cause I know Winhall hires Windsor County sheriffs to do theirs down there.
I wonder if we could hire Ludlow.
They're probably just, if they're willing to do it. I think
They would. Yes, Carol.
I did have a phone call from a gentleman on Tarbleville Road that did chase down the person that went speeding by and gave him the knuckles. He called the state police, and the state police told him he needed to call the town office and see what they were gonna do about it. So they're
I wonder if
About
we-
the knuckles?
no, about dealing with the person that did the speeding, but he said he took care of that gentleman with his own knuckles.
I don't know if I bought a broadcast that helped.
I did talk, I just ran into that individual.
So,
But I've also heard the same complaint about the same person from other people that live on that road too.
so maybe we can reach out to Ludlow PD and see if that's something that they can do as well.
Some other
You know,
options.
some other options. Because I know they travel up beyond the border now of Ludlow and Mount Holly, maybe.
It's a lot
I think-
closer.
And they'll be a little more strict, I think, than the sheriff's department.
Yeah, and if they could just come at the hours, like.
Right.
I think
So
that-
maybe we can ask. So,
Okay, sounds good.
so back to that real quick on the sheriff's department. So are we in agreement or making a motion to purchase some signs that have the speed limits posted out there?
Yes.
And or data information that can be recorded on them.
We've gotta get some quotes on them.
We'll have
see
to get
what
some
we can
quotes.
Get
Yep.
quotes and entertain it for next month.
I can gather quotes.
Yep.
Maybe even our RPC might have some recommendations. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Good, we'll have that for next month. Okay, junk ordinance. I've had multiple telephone calls on multiple properties of complaint. One is on, well, two are on Shunpike. One is not far from the Shrewsbury border. I believe the house was purchased by Lance. They called and complained about all the garbage that was strewn all over the lawn. I haven't been by there lately to see it, but.
It's picked up.
Is it picked up?
A lot of it's picked
Okay.
up.
The other one is Archie's place on Shunpike. I have had a complaint that it's growing in size again. Then another one was on Station Road. So I think we need to put the junk letter ordinance in the mail to these individuals again and ask them to please participate in the cleaning up of their properties.
I agree.
And I'll get with you, Faith, on the specific names.
You know that I told you that. They're not
I think
available
the letter's
till
drafted,
midweek.
you just need to change the date on it.
Yeah, the letters are drafted and I think we can change the dates. So,
Oh, Caitlin will have them on file in there.
yes.
You'll find them.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on, T-Mobile addition to cell tower. So,
This is their letter, and this is a concerned citizen about that.
okay, advance notice of a coalition of telecommunication antennas and equipment at the existing telecommunication facility located at 581 Stewart Road, Mount Holly. Dear Select Board and Planning Commission, enclosed, please find an advised notice in support of proposed coalitions to a wireless telecommunication facility at 581 Stewart Road in south in Mount Holly, Vermont. The advanced notice was e-filed with the Vermont PUC. If you have any questions, please let us know. T-Mobile Northwest LLC. Jonathan Springer. And this is a concerned employee,
No.
or not employee, but citizen of the town that,
This stuff is all gonna go to Faith,
yeah.
so she can file it.
As an abutting landowner, I have received the T-Mobile plans and propose for extending the monopole to install antenna equipment. I must admit, I am not in favor of increasing the height of the tower. Oh. But I also understand that adding antennas to the lower current provider antennas is likely not a good option for good coverage. So I do have the following requests. The color and sheen of the monopole extension and the color and sheen of the antennas equipment should be the same as the current AT&T equipment. Also, the Fox pine branches should be exact same length, type, density as the existing on the lower at this time. Finally, any damaging existing branches should be replaced as this project is undertaken. Thank you in advance for your considering this request so the tower extension blends seamlessly with the current monopole. Brett Wright. Did they say how high the extension is?
Can't be much higher because then it would have to have a light on top of it.
Correct.
So I think they're gonna probably stay underneath that from what I saw.
It would make sense if it matched.
Extended the top of the monopole by 10 feet. So that would bring the tower from 130 to 140 feet above ground. Project narrative with some new camouflage branches extending approximately 3 feet above the top of the monopole. And site install 3 new antennas. The new antennas will measure approximately 95.9 by 23.5 inches, with a total square footage of 46.95 feet. Okay. I'm not opposed to Brett's.
Yeah, well, I just want to see the actual.
So it's going to roughly put it at 148 feet.
Where's the other one?
The email or whatever.
It's the emails are all right there.
This is the email for it.
That's a concern, and that's the email.
That's the cover letter.
Gotcha.
And we already did J.
Yes,
Can the town make those requests of
we
them?
can.
So I was trying to figure out what it is.
I believe we can because the town requested when they put the original pole up that they have the branches and so forth.
That's what I thought.
So we can request the same to that. Yes, John.
And just as a reminder, that was part of Brett's request back when it was approved
Absolutely.
in the first place.
No, absolutely.
I don't, it's sort of built into his request, but on my request, that also in the butter and part of the planning commission. But it would be nice to ensure that we don't get the light on it. I think that would be pretty disruptive to the neighbors. I don't know if that was part of the plan, I haven't looked at it in detail, but.
It's not like the only illusion of the tree.
I mean, yeah, tree, if it's a Christmas tree.
Be Christmas year round.
Yeah, we can put tinsel on it, but.
I didn't see anything in the proposal about a light.
It'd be like the star on the top, right?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in the proposal about a light.
I think
So-
anything over 180 has to have a light.
Has to have a light.
My request would be that we just reiterate that we're not looking for a light.
Right,
Yeah, it looks like it's just advance notice of co-location, so
right.
I don't think it's submitted. The pre-filing notice, so I
Yeah,
don't.
it's pre-file, and I think the select board can make a request that, you know, they match the branches and the sheen.
So we just respond with
Yep.
our request and go from there.
Yep.
Don't approve anything.
That's correct. So
It's
we'll,
just informational on this part.
Yeah, as long as we're not agreeing to,
Yep.
Give that
we're not agreeing to the poll yet, but.
not yet,
Can
but
you?
when they submit a request
We ask
for approval,
these
we'll ask for those guidelines to be fulfilled.
and confirm there's no
Yep.
light.
Yep.
That's another clerk task.
Okay, we've done J for the traffic control. RRPC first draft 2026 phase 3 of Act 181. Stephanie?
That's not Stephanie.
No, I know.
Doesn't
look like Stephanie. It is not. So,
I'm gonna sneak up on you if that's okay.
Yeah.
Watch your toes. my goodness, you got the child's chair.
I'll stand, that's okay.
Old deals, yeah.
Alright. So I don't have enough copies for everybody, so if it's okay for folks to share, we'll get cozy. Jeff, Diane, how are you? Mark?
Very good, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Clinton?
Hey,
How are you?
good, there you
Good job. Now, I might have enough for everybody to pair up here. Got one more. Are you able to access the chat online?
I can look, yeah.
If you could, would you mind putting in a URL for me?
Okay. Let's see.
Just for the online folks to follow along. Long day. I'm sure you guys, especially, yeah. Try to make it as quick as I can. These have been running around 45 to an hour, so I'll do my best.
Where is the chat?
If not, that's okay. I can just verbally.
It may be turned off. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a chat option.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, thank you so much for the time tonight. I know you had a very busy agenda, so thank you so much for squeezing us in. This is a really important time for us, so I really appreciate it. You had a great turnout, so thank you. Not that you're here to see me, you're definitely here to talk about this important town business. So I am here, my name is Devin Neer, I'm the Executive Director of the Rutland Regional Planning Commission, and we're here to announce the launch of our third and final phase of public engagement for the 2026 Rutland Regional Plan. During this phase, we are trying to ask two essential questions, and really the goal of this phase is to try to align all the feedback and research we've done up to this point. So where have we been, where are we now, where are we going? We really tried to make this plan a little bit different by pursuing much stronger public engagement with the public and our towns. So this is actually our third time coming to Mount Holly and all 27 towns in the region. And as of after this phase, we will have held over 200 events and meetings to help develop this regional plan. So it's been quite an effort. We started this plan in the middle of 2023, and we hope to adopt the plan because our other plan expires in the spring of 2026. So it's this really long process, but it's so important that we get it right. So in phase one, which happened in early 2024, the phase was called Learn and Assess. And our number one goal was to learn as much about the region and the priorities from each of the 27 towns as possible. That informed the sort of baseline of the plan. And we took that back, did a bunch of research, and developed the sort of outline of the plan and our policies, which are really the sort of meat of the plan. In our second phase, which happened last year, our goal was, we called it Report Back. And our goal was really to just try to help explain how we took all that feedback we got from the first phase, Learn and Assess, and incorporate it into the plan, along with all the research and work that we did to form that draft. So here we are now, phase 3 alignment. And like I said, we're trying to align all these different pieces of this plan to make sure we got it right. So all the research, all the feedback, all the work we've done up to this point to follow statute and get this plan across the finish line. So we're asking two simple but really important questions during this phase. One is, does this plan reflect the right community economic development priorities for the region? And do these priorities make Rutland Region a place where you want to work, live, and play? And what we're going to be talking about tonight exactly is a little bit of a baseline refresher. What is the plan? What's the purpose? How do we develop it? What are the elements of the plan? And then finally, and really important, the draft future land use map and other ways in which you all as citizens and town officials can engage through this last phase, because we gotta get it right. We wanna make sure we hear from as many people as we can. So what is the regional plan? Well, it's very similar to your town plan in terms of what statutory requirements govern the plan. Under chapter 117 of the state code, it's the state planning law. And under that law, Title 24 lays out why we need a plan, what it is intended to do, and the elements you have to have within that plan. Just like a town plan, it's an 8-year plan. So if we adopt in 26, this plan will be good until 2034. Ultimately, this plan at its core is meant to guide coordinated and efficient community economic development, and really trying to balance all the different priorities: the environment, the economy, jobs, cultural and social and historical resources. All of that needs to form this plan and be balanced. Not only that, but land use and land use planning are at the core of this plan. Really understanding the pattern, the design, the function of development in the region is important so that we balance places we want to grow and places we want to conserve. So we had some core tenets when we developed this plan because we really wanted to make sure this was different from our previous plans in its effectiveness. So one core tenet was flexible. We wanted this plan to be flexible so it relates not only to Mount Holly, but Rutland City, Mount Tabor, and every town in between for the whole region, because we have a diverse region. You know, we have a town with 210 people and a city with 16,000. So this plan has to address all those unique needs. The next is locally led. That's why we're here tonight and why we've been here 3 times over the last 3 years in all 27 towns, holding pop-up events, community open houses. All those were really meant to be, this isn't us sitting in an office typing away on a computer. It's really you all helping to inform that plan. Lastly, or second to last, equitable and sustainable. We wanted to make sure that this plan sort of had some core analysis of each chapter. We analyzed equity, community resilience, and community health as a way to better understand sort of how these chapters and the sort of sections of the plan interact with communities on that level. And lastly, and most importantly for me as director and as a planner, outcome driven. Right now our regional plan really lacks concrete goals, actions, and policies that help really form a plan and really guide our work. So this plan is going to have very clear goals, actions, policies, and indicators of progress. So we're actually holding ourselves accountable and understanding, are we meeting these goals? Why are we not? So the core elements of the plan, like I said, are laid out in statute. We don't choose these, just like your town plan. You have to meet certain requirements. So what's really important about this particular simple graphic is that at the heart of everything that we're doing within this plan, land use is at the core. Everything, economic development, workforce development, agriculture, everything has to do with land use. And that's why this map is so important in getting it right. So we have had a regional plan since 1971. This is nothing new by a long shot. However, there's something critically different this time around versus all the previous iterations. Many of you have probably heard about Act 181 that was passed last year. This was the first and most foundational, comprehensive reform to Vermont's land use law in the last 50 years, and it did 3 important things. 1, it reformed Act 250. So in the past, Act 250 is all about scale of development. You're either a 1-acre town or a 10-acre town. So if the development meets that requirement, it falls into Act 250. Now it's location-based. So depending on how the region is mapped, there may be opportunities for those places that have land use regulations and utilities for them to be potentially exempt from Act 250 or partially exempt from Act 250, and we'll talk about that more. Next, it reformed the state designation program. Our village centers, our downtowns, it consolidated all of those programs, which really do a couple things. They unlock state level investments like historic tax credits and other things for towns. Belmont right now already is a village center. So this changed that program to consolidate them and allow regional planning commissions to map them beyond going through the whole process with the state of Vermont. And then lastly, it changed the future land use map. The regional future land use map now plays a role in Act 250 by laying out those areas that potentially are subject to some Act 250 relief. So what is the goal of Act 181? Ultimately, it's the state's long-time planning goal, and that is maintaining historic, dense village and downtown centers separated by rural countryside. It's been that way forever, and it continues to be that way. Any questions before we jump into some kind of complex pieces of Act 181 that relate directly to this map in Act 250? No? Before I go too far along, for folks online and in the room, everything we're talking about tonight, including resources on Act 181, we held a 2-day training several weeks ago. We recorded it and put up the slides. All this information is on our regional plan website. That's rutlandrpc.org/plan 2026. And that website is right on this packet. So you do not need to write it down. It's right on the last page if you have it. Otherwise, you can go onto our website, easily find it. So one thing that this Act 181 did, as in addition to all those changes I described, is it made all the regional planning commission's future land use maps consistent. In the past, all of our maps look completely different. So if you held up Rutland's next to Windsor's, next to Bennington's, they would look completely different and have different functions. So this law made it so every map is the same, it's colored the same, and every category is the same, and how we mapped it was generally the same. So creating some consistency, and ultimately we'll have a statewide map that looks just like this, so people can actually not guess on development. They can know exactly where and what to do in a certain area. So these land use categories that I talked about, in the past we got to choose them. Now they're defined in statute. And see all this little writing right here for those over there, you can't see it, but this is the statute that lays out each of these 11 land use categories. This Act 181 made it pretty prescriptive about what we can and cannot map and how we map it, which is good and bad. You know, please don't shoot the messenger tonight. I'm not a huge fan of all these provisions by a long shot. It makes some good changes, but it doesn't go far enough. But this is the framework in which we have to work, unfortunately. So 4 land use areas constitute our big growth areas. They're downtowns, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas. You can think of the downtowns and the villages as our dense historic settlements. Belmont we'll look at your map in a second here, blown way up. Belmont and where we're standing now are 2 of those sort of historic villages. And really this is meant to map out those places that have utilities, not in this case so much, but in other cases like Rutland City or Brandon or Fairhaven. And really those are the places in which this law is trying to push more growth, especially housing growth. That being said, this law does not prohibit rural growth as well. And that's really important to understand. This does not supersede your zoning. This only relates when things fall into the Act 250 category. So your zoning and local land use regulations will still apply, and your map will look different and function differently because this is only when Act 250 comes into play. So those first 4 categories, downtowns, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas, constitute our cores plus the sort of neighborhoods that surround them. They fall into 2 new categories for designations, either centers and neighborhoods. And then they fall within the Act 250 tiers. So before, like I said, there was sort of the 1 acre, 10 acre towns. Now there are 3 tiers. There's Tier 1A and Tier 1B. Tier 1A, think of as the cities in Vermont. with tons of utilities, public sewer, public water, zoning, all the regulations you can think of. Those areas, Tier 1A, will have to apply to the Land Use Review Board and potentially seek full Act 250 exemption. Tier 1B is just a step below, and think of those as sort of our medium-sized towns, our Brandons, our Fairhavens, our Pulteney's. Those Tier 1B towns have like Act 250 light, where housing or mixed-use development with housing of 50 units or less on 10 acres or less would be exempt from Act 250. So those two tiers constitute Tier 1. Tier 2 is basically status quo of Act 250 the way it is today, plus one old change that came back, which is the road rule, which they used to have. The road rule is 800 feet of private road or 2,000 feet of a combination of private and public roads would potentially fall into Act 250 now. And then finally, Tier 3. Tier 3 is critical natural resources. We do not map these. We do not have anything to do with them. The Land Use Review Board, which is the new board that took over for the Natural Resources Board that governs Act 250, they're in a rulemaking process right now until the end of the year to define what these Tier 3 areas are. So I wish I could tell you more about where are they, how big they are, what do they mean, but we just don't know yet, which is unfortunate, but it's really independent of what we're talking about tonight. So those 4 areas, the pinks, purples, those are our cores. Around those cores are 3 other areas: transition, which you can think of as sort of strip development. There's very few in the region. Think of Route 7 south of Rutland Town, where you have all the box stores and nothing else, kind of looks like New Jersey. That's what's mapped in those areas. And sort of an idea is to try to densify them eventually with housing and other mixed development. Enterprise areas are areas that are high economic activity industrial zones. Think of business parks, the Rutland Airport, quarries, like the Marble Quarry or the Slate Belt along the western Rutland County. You know, think of big industrial areas. And then finally, resource-based recreation. Those are sort of your big resource or recreation areas that have development around them. You have a little bit in your town based around Okemo. Most of the resource-based recreation areas are Killington and lakes and ponds surrounding areas with a bunch of development. So like Bombazine, Lake St. Catherine, places with a lot of houses on them. Lake Nineveh, which I know isn't technically, well, part of it is, right? Mount Holly? Most of it is. Yeah, most of it is. Some of that has a little bit where there's housing.
Acres worth is in Mount Holly.
Yeah. You're right, it pretty much all is in Mount Holly. Yeah, really. Some of that would be under this category too. So those are the sort of like growth areas, if you will. The rural areas, which, as you can imagine, is most of the region, falls into 3 different categories. One is rural ag and forestry, and really, what we did here, which is required in statute and also part of our methodology for mapping, is all those lands that are in current use for forestry and agriculture fell into this category. And what it means is you can still develop on this land, but by and large, because it's in current use, the sort of primary use of that land would be in that ag or forestry use, right? Rural conservation is the next one. And again, doesn't say you can't develop there, but think of these as our big blocks of forest land, state forest, source protection areas, wetlands, the areas that are really, really, really hard to develop already. Those fall into rural conservation. And then lastly is rural general, and that's kind of everything else. That's your rural residential and businesses that have generally mapped suitable soils for septic. Now, this isn't a septic map. It's not going to be perfect, right? This is very broad-based. So that was a super fast crash course. This is a really complex subject. And if you want to learn more, I'm certainly happy to answer questions. I really would recommend folks who want to really dive into this, access our recording of our training and the slides online, it really dives in much deeper to Act 181. So what does this mean ultimately? Well, for the region, it means that we have 39 centers mapped, 2 of which are in Mount Holly. That's 0.4% of the land, but 6.5% of the buildings. The neighborhoods, none of those are mapped in Mount Holly. There's 16 of them, 2% of the land, 32% of the buildings. So just between centers and neighborhoods, we're about 40% of all buildings, but only about 2.5% of the land. So small land, a lot of density. That's what that really is saying. Transition, enterprise, and resource-based rec, not much of the land and not much of the buildings generally. However, the rural general is 17% of our entire region, another 40% of the buildings. And why I think this is important to point out is that between our centers, neighborhoods, and our rural general, which is historically where we have developed, because that's where we've been able to develop, that's 80% of our current buildings within the region fall into those few categories. When we look at rural ag and rural conservation, it's a ton of the land, 70% of the land in the region, which we knew, but it's only about 10% of the buildings. And I think what this is really getting at is we're constrained in Rutland County based on our physical resources. We have high peaks, low valleys, we have flood zones. It's hard to develop in certain areas and easier to develop in others. And this map, although imperfect, because the statute and the methodology are what we're able to work within, it does look much more like the region than our old future land use map. It's much more granular and much more relevant to how we're using the land today. Now, one question I've gotten from a lot of towns so far when I've met with them about this is what you're describing as a current land use map, not a future land use map. And you're not wrong. The statute kind of didn't go far enough in that way to allow us to really grow further beyond what we're sort of laying out now. When we created these maps, we did one thing. We tried to get every town the biggest benefit possible, but still operating within the statutory requirements, because ultimately, if we do not follow statute, our whole plan and this map will not be approved by the Land Use Review Board, and then none of the benefits will apply to anybody. So we're sort of stuck, generally. However, why we're here tonight and why it's so important to get this right is we're going to be looking at a big blown up version of Mount Holly, because we took the methodology in the statute and we created our first draft map. But we need you all, as folks who live in Mount Holly and know Mount Holly, to provide some feedback as to say, hey, Devin, this looks right, this doesn't look right. And we're asking every town to do so during this last phase of engagement. Now, the timeline is tight, and that is unfortunate, because when we started this plan in 2023, Act 181 wasn't even a thing. It was passed last July, and by the time the methodology was complete, we weren't starting this mapping until this late winter, early spring. So we have to have our plan ready to go to hearing by this fall. So we're trying to do this mapping quickly and efficiently as possible. So what we're going to do right after this is we are going to break out this big map and all huddle around and take a look at it. We're asking the town for 2 things. Well, really one thing tonight, because the other thing doesn't apply to Mount Holly, because you do not have zoning. And zoning is one of the critical components to be eligible for those 2 tier 1 benefits. And again, the law is imperfect. I did not write it, but that's how we have to operate. That next slide really just shows the breakdown of Mount Holly and the different land use categories. But tonight, we'd like you all to review the map, and then over the next 3 weeks, the select board get together and decide how they want to provide feedback to the RPC on potential changes. Now, we can't guarantee that we can change everything, because like I said, we have to operate within statute, but we want to hear everything that you guys have to say and try to get this as right as we can. So, before we look at the map, a couple quick things about the plan itself beyond just the map. So, we have a full draft of the plan coming out. It's dense, I'm sorry. It's not the easiest document to get through if you're just looking for a pleasure read. However, knowing that, we try to develop a couple other resources for folks who want to understand the plan but may not want to read the whole thing. So there's 3 ways to engage during this last phase of public engagement. One is going online and looking at what we call our plan visualized. Excuse me, just 1 second. Which is kind of a fun way to show what a regional plan is. Sorry. And what it means for the region. I'll just hold this. We hired a cartoonist to basically draw the policies of the plan, not all of them, but a good portion of them to try to help describe at the highest 30,000 foot level, what is a regional plan, what does it mean? Now, if this is just not enough, you're like, hey, I want to learn more. This is just kind of a teaser. We did one thing in between a full draft in the plan. We wrote 1-page chapter summaries for every chapter of the plan. So if you want to basically get the Cliff Notes version of the plan without reading all 200 pages, you can go online and read those 13 pages that are really concise ways to sort of review the plan. And then finally, if you're really interested, our full draft plan will be available for folks to review as well. So between now and the end of June, we're asking folks to take a look at those pieces of the plan and try to provide as much feedback as you can. So, any questions? I know that was quick. Trying to not take up all your evening tonight. No? Yeah.
When you were talking about doing a follow-up on the achievable goals you're setting.
Yes.
Is that going to be in the plan? I'm going to call it an AAR after action report.
Yes. So we'll have an implementation matrix where we actually lay out all the goals, policies, and actions, a timeline, a cost, and a responsibility. And then we're going to actually have indicators of progress, or not going to, we have them. So we can actually measure the progress of each of those actions or policies as we go through the next 8 years.
Or non-action.
Or non-action, exactly. Yep.
Okay, and if the land use board comes up with rules or regulations that are different than what you're operating under right now, presently.
Yep. So the land use review board doesn't have that authority. All the goals and policy or goals and elements of the regional plan are in statute, so that's a legislative change. Now they could change. They have changed sort of small elements over the last several years. However, the review board checks, the land use review board checks our plan against statute and says, did you meet this? Like a checklist, yes or no? So that's a new thing. In the past, our regional planning commission, which is an appointment from every town in the region, Jess Metcalf is your primary, and are you the alternate? Yeah, that's so. They are actually voting on this plan, and in the past, they were the only ones who voted on the plan. This new state level review board is a whole new thing. So it is a concern for us to make sure that not only the commission supports and adopts the plan, but the state approves it as well. So we're trying to get this done this summer because the adoption process for a regional plan takes 6 months. So our first public hearing, and we have a very long notification process for the hearings. We will start notifying the hearings in October, and we'll have our first hearing in January. And we're looking to adopt the plan not until April and May. So we're talking 6 long months of public hearings, and we will be looking to host some hearings out in the region. So if Mount Holly wants to be a host, we'd love to have one here. So I've droned on a lot. I'm happy to answer questions. If you want to follow up with an email, phone call, happy with that too. So let's look at the map. This is why we're here. This is the fun part. Before we look at the new map, which I'm going to lay this on your table, I want to show you the old map as a contrast. You can see this is pretty detailed. Our current map of the 2018 plan, which is still in effect, is substantially different, right? It's very, very basic. So when we use this in Act 250 proceedings at our regional committee, it's difficult. It lacks a lot of definition to sort of better understand and apply our policies around Act 250. So like tonight, when you all were talking about this cell tower in Mount Holly, we're actually going to be reviewing that same project next week at our regional committee. All of our commissioners form that committee. And we actually will have the same exact comments you all, that this needs to look good and fit the landscape primarily in your town. So this hasn't been the most effective. It was very simple, but it worked. This will have a very, very, very different function and a lot more detail. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna bring this right up here. And if folks wanna get up and gather around, and I'll get rid of the board. It won't, we can try, but it might be difficult. This map for folks online or watching, along with the presentation, is available on our website. So every map of the region, every town map is available online right now at a very high resolution, so you can zoom way in and see specific parcels or properties that you're interested in. So, unless Clinton, you want to hold this up with me. Chasing ourselves a little bit. I want to make sure the select board can see this as well. Okay. So we talked about all those land use categories. So right now, Mount Holly has 2 village centers mapped. One is your existing village center right here in Belmont, and we tried to grow it a little bit. Now, how we map that was defined in our methodology, so we couldn't just make it this whole area. It would never have passed, right? But there's some flexibility based on the statute, so we're able to grow this a little bit bigger than what the current one is. When we created this map, we did 2 things. We looked at the town's future land use map and your zoning map to try to help inform some of these districts. We did add a village center here where we are now, where the town office is. If the town's like, no, we don't like that, we don't want that, we can remove it. However, it felt like, hey, this is another civic area, there's a school, there's a town office, there's a couple businesses, that feels legitimate. However, if you're like, no, we don't want it, we'll remove it. The next category is your resource-based recreation area. We have mapped a little bit of the Okemo property, a little bit of Lake Nineveh, where there are homes versus less developed. And then it looks like, these might be mistakes, but those 2 areas got mapped as resource-based rec areas. Do you know why that would be?
Airbnbs probably.
Airbnbs. Those could be subject to change, because it probably would be more appropriate in rural general. All the yellow is rural general, and you might be asking, why are all these dots out here? Well, what we did is, when property was in a large forest block like this, we did a buffer around the residence or the building to make sure that, hey, even though this might be a rural conservation area, which could either be a permanent conservation easement, a source protection area, and highest priority interior forest, we felt like, hey, these need to at least show that there's a property or a building on the property. Now, we are over the next several weeks going to be trying to smooth this out a little bit. It's a little rough and tumble, so this may not always look so sort of chunked up the way it is. The next is rural ag and forestry, which are all these blue parcels. And these parcels are currently within current use or active farms or forest blocks. There is a lot of that. And you know, I've been to 7 towns now, and a lot of towns have a lot of this. Even if there's not a farm there, a lot of properties are in current use, you know.
Reduction on taxes.
Yeah, not great for the locality. For the municipality, I definitely agree with that.
You've got 25 acres or more, you can do it.
Yep, yeah, whether you're doing anything with it, right?
Exactly.
Yep, which is not great for out-of-state owners. So the last and final is the green area, which is that rural conservation. And you know, Mount Holly, no surprise, you've got the national forest and big blocks of forest around town, and these smaller little outcrops that likely are wetlands, source protection areas, like I said before, that sort of laundry list of the different things. The criteria for all this mapping is on our website. It's fairly complex, but it really boils down to a few things, and that is, within the rural general area, it is the soils that are mapped as suitable by the Agency of Natural Resources for potential septic. The blue is primarily for ag and forestry, and the green is primarily for conservation. That being said, it's not, and I want to make this perfectly clear, it is not restricting development in these areas. We're not. The big thing with this plan that I'm trying to promote that our past plans didn't get quite right is we need to support development in the region. We desperately need housing, which I'm so encouraged by the housing study that you guys are doing. That's awesome. That being said, we're not trying to promote housing and businesses everywhere, right? That's not appropriate. Mount Holly is great the way it is because you guys have been thoughtful in how your development has been. And we want to continue to support this. So when is this map going to be used? It's going to be used when a project enters Act 250. And they will fall into a certain category. However, because Mount Holly does not have zoning, this entire map will be Tier 2 until the state maps those Tier 3 areas. So generally, it'll be business as usual. Now, if the town eventually adopted zoning and subdivision, well, you have subdivision regs. And do you have river corridors or flood bylaws? Yep, you have all that stuff. So zoning's the only missing component to potentially get some minor Act 250 relief in just these 2 pink areas. So not super substantial. And this is where I hope this law eventually gets amended and changed to allow us to grow some of these areas so we can have a bigger benefit in town. Now, most of the development that happens in Mount Holly falls through just normal, right? If you build a house, you don't go through Act 250, you just build and, you know, because you don't have zoning, you don't need a zoning permit. That won't change because of this map, and that's an important thing to know. So, hopefully you guys are willing and able to take I'm gonna leave this map with you, and again, it's available online. Take a good look at it at the Planning Commission, at the Select Board level, and we're asking to try to consolidate the feedback and the comments from either one person that you all decide, whether it's John, whether it's Jeff, whether it's Mark, Diane, anybody that you sort of say, hey, you're gonna be in charge of this. We're asking for feedback in the next 3 weeks. If you need a little time, we understand. This is a short timeline. We wish to God that we could give more, but we're sort of under the gun with this one. Any thoughts, feelings?
Does the accuracy need to be like rural general, like where there's houses? Do you want to, is it important to, if there's a missing spot, to let you guys know?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, if there's a missing spot, we want to know about it. Or if you're like, this just doesn't look right, we want to take a look at it. Like this. I don't know why this is rural, resource-based recreation. It says,
A lot of ski homes.
yeah, ski homes, but it seems like it's disconnected from the resort.
Is that? That's
That's acre lots, it's all non-residents, mostly non-resident skiers.
So that might be why we ultimately put it like that. Yeah, and I'm guessing we looked at your zoning map. The other one's along
Station.
Road, which isn't that super rural?
No, there's houses all.
Oh,
houses on
I'm
both
thinking
sides.
of Shunpike. What am I thinking of?
There's houses on both sides.
Okay.
And that abuts the state forest.
And what's the zoning district? Or sorry, not zoning district, your future land use district.
We had it in a denser development.
Okay, yeah, so that would make sense then, because it's denser development associated with that recreation asset ultimately.
If your property is in current use and you don't show, like it's the green, the light green,
Yep,
and there's not, your house site isn't labeled rural, is that of concern for mapping for
No.
what you're doing?
no, so if you're in current use, the property shouldn't show any rural general,
Okay.
because ag and forestry basically supersedes rural general. Because we mapped that last, essentially. So yeah, I'll leave this with you all. Happy to come back as well if you're like, hey Devin, there's so much about this, why don't you come back and let's have a conversation? Happy to do that. If not, if you're like, hey, you got this pretty close, we're happy enough with it, here's a few tweaks, that's great too.
And you're gonna repost it once you clean up the granularity you were talking about, like.
Yeah, we're working through the sort of GIS nuts and bolts, which can be complicated. We'd like to ultimately smooth this out a bit and maybe make it a little bit more linear, but.
Another question.
Yes.
So in terms of like, and you mentioned that there's actually like a hierarchy of how you apply these rules in these zones. It looks to me just from the map that anything that's rural ag sort of takes precedence.
Yes.
It's like on top.
It was the first rural district mapped, yeah.
Okay.
And that
Because
was
like there's no cutouts for rural ag
exactly
around homes. And there's
only
no,
rural
and there's
conservation.
no like conservation within rural ag is what I'm seeing.
Exactly, yep.
And is there a reason for that?
Yep, because the methodology dictates that we map rural ag in general, rural ag and forestry first, and it supersedes rural general and rural conservation. Basically because the entire lot is within current use,
So it's
including the,
parcel granularity or maybe many parcels together because of owners.
could be many parcels together.
Yeah.
We are not looking for parcel granularity.
Well, you do have less than parcel granularity around homes.
Exactly.
And some resource, like, I'm assuming these are like wetlands here.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So your wetlands came from where?
The ANR mapping.
Is it just class 2 or?
1, 2, and 1 and 2 for sure. I'll have to look at my cheat sheet.
You're saying when that's yellow and it straggles on, that's not what you're talking
Well,
about?
this
No,
one
That's what
it's-
you're pointing to.
It could be like a blobby
Yeah,
green
that's-
would be potentially a wetland complex. And, it would be insane to label every single underlayer, right?
Yeah.
So we're basically superseding it and saying, hey, these are the reasons behind this, but we can't label it all,
Right, so is when you have a class 2 wetland in an ag property,
Mm-hmm.
you're not trying to map that.
That will only show up as like a little,
Well, that's open water. So
Mhm.
like, you clearly see here that and that are
yes,
connected, and they are connected. Like
Yeah.
I know that area, the class 2 goes all the way through,
exactly.
but it happens to be enrolled currently. And
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't that show when you go into a more granular level?
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, this map wouldn't be used to sort of identify a wetland complex. That's not the intent. And this would not like eliminate the need to go get a wetlands permit by any means. This would be more of when let's say there's an Act 250 permit for, let's say something crazy, right? Like there's an Act 250 permit within this area for a Walmart, and I know that is nuts, that would never happen.
It was a wildlife, wasn't it a wildlife zoo back in the 70s?
Yeah, so when we would review that project at the regional commission, we'd say, well,
He's away up by.
this
Shunpike.
property was primarily for ag and forestry, that use would not be appropriate.
Yeah.
But conservation, I'm assuming, is a higher level of concern in some sense. Like,
Ag and forestry, actually was sort of given higher priority.
So
in
that's, in
181.
some sense, that's more protective than the conservation designation?
Neither are
I mean, protective is sort
more
of
or less
excluding.
protective.
Yeah.
It's more about like, what was the intent of that land? So here's a great way
Well,
to.
like swamp is like.
Yeah, exactly, right. So this isn't gonna like say, here are all the constraints to building in the entire region.
Yeah.
That's not what it's gonna do. However, it's saying, okay, if you build something here, it needs to at least consider ag and forestry and fit within the sort of like aesthetic and land use sort of feel of an agroforestry zone.
Yeah.
You know?
So just last question on this, so driving this home.
Yeah.
Is it statutorily required that it not have inclusions of, conservation within the parcel boundaries of a current use property?
Not in statute, but in the methodology that we created with all the other regional planning
And you have to
commissions.
stay with that?
We generally are because of consistency. We're trying to not do like a bunch of one-off like exceptions. And ultimately, it doesn't change the intent of the map, we believe. We sort of, it still does for so.
Thanks.
All right, well, I've taken up a lot of your time. Really appreciate it, Mark, Diane, Jeff. I will leave this with you. And again, for everyone who's interested, all those resources are available on our regional plan website. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great, just a long.
No, it was really interesting hearing about yourself. And one note on the whole contracting with Ludlow in Pittsford, they actually contract their police department to Chittenden, and it works great because they used to use the sheriff department. It didn't work out. So they provide, I think, like, I don't know if it's 10 or 20 hours a week, but they get much more choice in when Pittsburgh comes and does that. So it's a really good call. I think that's a great idea. So,
Thank you.
well, let us know how we can support any of that transportation work, and I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to grants and aids.
Mark? Hands up.
Yes, John.
I just want to mention, we'll be discussing this at our planning commission meeting next week. I don't know if you guys want to coordinate feedback or how you want that addressed. If you want us to give you what we think, or if you want to have a joint meeting, I don't know, it's up to you guys. It's a pretty tight timeline.
It's a pretty tight timeline.
June
Yeah.
4th is like kind of ridiculous, but
Yeah.
we can, let us know, I guess, if you have thoughts on it.
And if you need a little bit more time as well, if like the meetings don't align perfectly, just send us an email saying, hey, we'd like to request a little bit more time. Okay.
So we want to request more time, at least get to the next regular meeting,
Yeah, we should get to the next
which is the second Tuesday of
November 1.
So that's some decision. Okay.
yeah.
It'll be the 10th.
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Yeah.
And you're willing to, what was your offer?
Well, we'll put it on the agenda for next week.
Yep. For discussion.
We discussed it pretty informally last month. And I think we have some more things to discuss now. You guys could come, we could dig into it, talk through it, whatever you want to do. It's not a whole lot of time, so.
No, there isn't.
I would guess that we're probably only gonna spend our next meeting on it, and then that'll be it. But
I won't be here.
Yeah, no, I can try to,
I don't think we'll have a special meeting, we'll just try to do it next week if that works for you guys.
I can attend.
Yeah, I
See if there's any comment, especially from the public.
Yeah.
Try to get the information together and then we come back to the regular meeting.
Should throw it out in a newsflash or something.
Yeah, I can,
That's it.
I can just
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Throw it out there and we can
say something.
at least see what,
Jim,
the public.
Do you want the old future land use map too?
The chairman company.
John, your meeting, you're what, next Tuesday? Wednesday?
Yeah, what time?
6, is that?
9.
The meeting's at 7.
See, that's Johnson Dental, I think you will be.
We'll see you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We can try a different day, but we.
Well, the only reason I say that is I'm up at 3 in the morning to go to work, so I have to have.
I'm actually struggling to get to that 7 now.
So I'll throw it on for Wednesday at 7 and we'll go from there. Okay.
I make it.
All right.
Well, should we try a different meeting?
Oh, turn it around. He wants to hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to inconvenience others, but
Well, if we're gonna use the online to look at it while you're there, you can do it via Zoom instead of having to show up.
yeah, I have another,
You know, just depending on how we look at the maps.
yeah. I'll try.
We could set up something for next week, Joe, or something like that.
I thought you were taking it. When is the meeting? What day you're talking? You're not
Our
talking.
regular meeting, just our regular
Just-
monthly meeting is next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
It doesn't have to be during that meeting that we talk about it, we can do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tight timeline because I'm gone the following week. I'm on vacation.
We'll talk after.
We can go with you.
Want to talk after?
No.
Or-
Good call.
Any other day, Tuesday or work or Monday.
Right.
You wouldn't let us go last time. I know.
I mean, personally, I could do like a afternoon on the 20th.
Nice in Alaska, so.
Okay.
Oh, Alaska.
That's where I went. That's where I went.
That'd be
Last
last
week from today.
Yeah,
This side.
that works.
Like
To the lake.
We're glad to go with you. Room's right next to you.
We do
Eat
4:30.
dinner outside.
Just Champlain.
Yeah. 4:30 to 5:30.
Yep, we got a spot there.
Tuesday.
I can't do any of
She's
it. I'm
oh,
gonna
okay.
be in surgery.
recovery.
Tuesday.
Recovery. You're gonna
Recover.
What time?
I'll be
4:30.
I'll be just coming home.
Next Tuesday at 4:30, that would work for me.
A
little better.
At that point, you guys can do just a special select board meeting or something. Unless you don't have enough.
No.
We're not deciding anything.
We're not deciding nothing. We're
We just have like an
We're just looking at the map.
informational.
Oh, because then that would be kind of good, because then at the next meeting today, after that, the planning commission can make a formal, like,
Yeah.
letter to you or whatever we need to do.
For change, yep.
It has to come from you guys at the end of the day, so.
Okay, that works.
For the surrogate, she's gonna be there.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the grants and aids.
Grant and Aid is just signing the FY 26 for the meeting minutes, letter of intent. And I suggest again, just if you want to appoint me as authorized grant representative so I can sign it. And
Yeah,
then
I'll make a motion.
keep track of it.
To appoint Jeff to be the authorized signer for the grants and aids. Is there a second?
I second.
The ayes?
Aye.
Perfect. And we'll move on to old business, local emergency management plan, annual update and approval.
So this is due on June 1st. Working on it, but I don't have a draft to propose. It does need to get signed and sent in prior. But I can ask for an extension to the 10th
Okay.
and see if that works. Could just send them where we are at the moment by the end of the month.
Okay, that works for next month.
But that's just the annual emergency management plan.
Yep.
It's just updating contacts and
Yep.
a little bit of formatting changes, whatever the new standard is from template from the state.
Okay, moving to the next one, the DWSRF funding authorization, Mount Holly School PFAS project. RF 3-543-3.0.
It's just a letter to read.
Okay, this is from Cheryl Hammond, Twin Rivers Supervisory Union. The Ludlow Mount Holly UUSD DWSRF loan connecting Mount Holly School to the town garage well has been processed internally at the Agency of Natural Resources, ANR, and will be forwarded to the Vermont Bond Bank for underwriting today. This email is to keep you updated and does not indicate final loan approval. The loan amount is $925,000. This project qualified for additional subsidiary in the form of 100% loan principal forgiveness to be applied at project completion. As outlined in our fiscal year 2022 intent use plan for PFAS related project expenses. VBB will review the completed funding authorization package. This process usually takes 4 to 8 weeks. Please respond to their request for documentation promptly when that underwriting procedure is complete. They will provide loan agreement for review and signature to be returned to VBB to fully execute the loan. At this time, A&R will contact you with instructions for submitting DWSFR payment request. Please indicate the DWSRF loan number RF3-543-3.0 in the future for future DWSRF correspondence. In the meantime, the state CECF grant program that is primarily funding bottled water in the system with PFAS has some funding available for this project. Continue to submit project expenses in addition to bottled water for reimbursement to that program. Brendan O'Brien in the Drinking Water Division is the contact for the program and is copied on this email. Sincerely, Amy Golford.
It's just updating that they are with the town water system.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the hook onto the town well.
Right, it doesn't mean though that it's your loan,
No, it is not our loan, it is their loan.
and they may get it forgiven, may.
They may.
Yeah, I think most of the time
They
those infrastructure ones
They may.
do get.
So
forgiven.
this is just a communication letter that they wanted us to read out.
Okay.
Okay, citizens' comments. 911 post mailbox.
That's what, oh, I gave you the letter.
Issue Summit Road. As you can see from the photos, our mailbox and other posts with a 911 metal number, which was secured by screws, was struck by the plow blade. Or wing, causing damage to both. I had called the town office and reported it to the town clerk, and someone came out, reviewed the sign that has come loose again, and was able to secure the mailbox in place for the time being. Also, the metal pipe holding the mailbox was pushed out of place too. You can see from the photos that the lawn have been torn up, as well as the gravel from the road is now on the lawn. We don't feel that we should have to pay for the damages that was done by the town plow. Truck pushing the snow back off the roads is understandable, but the way it was done here is a little too much. When it was done, the road was intended so much you could see the grooves in the road pushing the dirt up where it is snow, or where it is now. We have watched the vehicles have ended up in the ditch on the corner, including the town truck 2 times, having to be pulled out because the snow has been pushed completely off the road. Too many people didn't know.
I think, guys,
come on,
Sorry.
didn't know where the edge of the road was day or night. We hope this can be taken care of and don't happen again in the future. So I've gone through and looked at the photos. The mailbox post, I don't know if this photo was done before or after. The mailbox post was a little turned. You can see where the edge of the road was pushed up, but like me plowing my road, I've got stones on my lawn. The other post.
There's writing on the back, I think.
The other post is a 911 sign post. It looks like it may have been an old mailbox post, but it's got a flower bucket on it. It is not a mailbox. It looks kind of in rough shape, but it also looks to be within the town right away. So,
I mean, if we knock the mailbox over, we should probably just screw the screws back in.
if my opinion is we take care of the mailbox, we can screw the sign back to the post.
You can't.
You can't.
It's all
The
rotted.
post is so rotted that it won't hold the screws.
I think at that point, you just gotta find a way to fix it. Like, we don't own replacing a rotted post, but we gotta somehow at least put it back with something,
Yes.
like get creative. You know what I mean? Like, it was standing up before.
The post is still standing up.
It's still standing.
The sign,
No, I'm
the
just
sign
saying
is not.
zip tie it or something like that. I don't know.
Jeff, they're not gonna go with just tying it, I can tell you now.
They want a new post, but it's not a mailbox. No.
It's really shouldn't be. It's
I mean,
up to
that.
them.
I don't know.
We're responsible to clean that up. I've already talked to
Just
Clinton. He's
the
gonna
windrow.
take
The windrow, not the
I'll
stone.
clean
No,
the
he's-
sod and whatever.
He's
up,
going to
but
take it, but if you also look at it, the lawn is higher than the road a little bit there, and I can see where it would get pushed back. But I'm
I'm not saying he did anything wrong.
No, I think we'll be responsible for picking the sod and cleaning that up in anything that's on the mailbox. A rotted post, the town is not responsible for a rotted post.
We can respond that we tried to put it back, but there's no
Yeah.
rot. It's rotted too much.
So, and we can respond that, and I'll swing by and take a look at the post too, because I'm headed that way after this meeting. So,
But as far as the stones in the yard, that's
common.
That's common.
That is common.
Especially for some reason this year,
it was
more common because of the way that fall was.
The lip. It's mostly the greater berm that was flung off.
Yeah.
Because it was so soft and.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean.
No, we can take care of that. I'm gonna go look at I'll go look at the post on the way on the way down through.
It's a function, I think, of just how mild the fall was when it snowed. For the
Yes.
first time.
No, absolutely. And again, we've had warm weather, muddy roads during plowing snow. I get it. Okay, moving on to Rimrock Road trash concerns. We gotta.
That was Summit Road.
Yeah,
It's
Summit Road. I'm sorry.
Summit
I just
Road.
read.
I got the wrong road.
It's Summit Road.
I saw the guy's address.
I'm probably gonna butcher his last name, but Joe Galbraith.
Librarian.
Galbraith, yeah.
My family and I are concerned about visitors in our town who are dumping their trash on roadways and byways. Several times this winter, we have picked up several bags of trash, including single-use bottles and discarded cans that have been deposited along Summit Road. Most of it appears to be from renters of short-term rentals in our neighborhood. Perhaps a formal letter needs to go to the owners of these properties to let them know that this is taking place. Last week, my wife and I picked up trash from one spot that filled 3 13-gallon bags that were discarded day passes to Okemo in this pile. It is not only unsightly, but it's a health hazard and an attraction for hungry bears. Litter is a public nuisance and should not be tolerated. Thank you for your attention. Respectfully submitted, Joe. This is a tough one. We can, put something out on the news flash and in the chit chat about properly disposal of your garbage. But unless we physically can catch the person or find a name in the bag, I don't know who.
If they're visitors to our town, they won't get the news flash or the chit chat.
Correct. I don't know any other way to get that communication out there other than post it and.
In theory, if it's some kind of a short-term rental,
It's the landowner's responsibility.
Correct.
If there was a way to actually write to the Airbnb people and say, provide some way for these people to leave the trash at the property when they go home.
But it's pretty hard to say who and where it come from because.
They have to contact Joe and find out who these people are.
Right.
You could just do a blanket letter, like reminder, trash to be picked up.
Correct, taken
5 or
care
6
of.
homes in that area, don't.
Because we're seeing it not just on Summit Road, but you see it on 103, you see it in the rest areas, we see it everywhere. But we'll try to get some sort of communication out to the landowners, maybe that are Airbnbs.
John's got his hand up.
I can't see through Bowley. Hey, John.
Sorry.
Yes, John.
I'm on Summit Road too. I can confirm it. There's a couple of different ways that the trash gets spread around. It seems that a lot of them are short-term renters, and they leave for the weekend, and it's not trash day or whatever, or they don't care.
Critters take
They
it.
leave it. The critters take it.
Yep.
And bears
I have
everywhere.
I have the same
I just
issue.
did green up day, and I got I had to upscale the contractor bags because the green bags were kind of.
I've got the same issue on our private road because we've got a couple Airbnbs that are
It's
there.
Airbnbs.
And the bears are taking the
They
trash.
leave, like,
I just
they
had,
get some nice steaks from Shaw's.
Yeah.
Got all the wrappers in there.
They don't even-
Bags of lobster and shrimp, and they're just, the bears go nuts.
it don't even take that because they tipped one of my beehives over today.
Yeah.
So,
But the other way that's been spreading is there's a lot of people drinking, driving,
just throwing them out.
and before they get on 103, they chuck it.
Or 155, because there's.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just
So, you know, maybe,
they're party houses basically.
yeah, maybe we post, or send some letters out to the Airbnbs, but I couldn't tell you who's an Airbnb and where there's an Airbnb, other than the ones that I personally know. So,
Mark, is
Yes.
there a listing in the post office?
I don't know. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
No. But there's a listing on the computer.
There's a listing somewhere,
So-
you know, the
Chit chat, newsflash.
Chit chat,
I can throw it on
newsflash.
Facebook.
Yep.
I think
Try to
people should
catch
just
those
start
people.
throwing it on Facebook too as well.
Yeah.
And,
Secure
you
your
know,
trash.
maybe the landowners in that area, if they know it's an Airbnb, maybe a nice little courtesy letter, not a nasty letter in the mailbox saying, please help with your tenants on trash removal because it is being spread over to the properties. You know, something like that. Yes, Steve?
Possibly throw a letter in with a tax bill.
Potential. It's potential.
That list of,
I'm just-
the items on that letter will be numerous.
Right, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, we don't know who's an
Yeah,
Airbnb.
and again, I don't know unless there's a physical name in the trash. I don't know any other way of telling, other than it's probably rentals and Airbnb folks.
Right. Yeah,
So,
remind the
Let's,
owner.
we'll get as much communication out there as we physically can on town news flashes and chit chats and
Social media.
social media. Is there any other citizens' concerns or comments? Okay, announcements. Town office will be closed for Memorial Day, May 26th. Review and sign the orders. Do we need an executive session?
Yep.
Okay, executive session title 1, DSA S313A3. Personal personnel. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we enter executive session Title 1 VSA S313A3 personnel.
I'll second it. The ayes, aye.
Aye.